I want to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Environmental Intelligence Collaboration Team. And I think we have, do we have Candace? Are you on, Candace? Are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the phone only. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna rename the phone number.
Okay, we do have the three collaboration team leads online here. It's myself, and I'm Executive Director of the Alaska Ocean Observing System based in Anchorage. We have Roberto Delgado from National Science Foundation on, and then we have Candace Nachman from NOAA. So we're the three team co-leads. We're holding this meeting to get input from anyone and everyone about the future of the IARPC next 5-year plan. And what we're going to do first, should we take roll call here, Anne, or just have everyone, maybe just, I think everyone is listed except for, well, and Candace is listed now, her name is too. Should we do a roll call or not?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea, and we don't have that many people that don't take. So.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll get started after that. So, Roberto, do you want to start with yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Molly said I'm with the National Science Foundation. I am a program director for the Arctic Observing Network. Besides co-leading this team, I'm also involved in the interagency U.S. Arctic Observing Network, as well as one of 2 U.S. national reps to the Sustaining Arctic Observing Network program.
Thanks. Candace, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Candace Nachman with NOAA Fisheries Office of Policy. In addition to being co-team lead of this team, I'm also involved in the IARPC Plan Development Steering Group and a lot of other efforts. So thanks all for being on today.
Okay, I'm just going to call out. How about Paul Thompson? And you're on mute.
Yes, I'm Paul Thompson. I'm at Dartmouth College, and I've been interested in cyber infrastructure in rural Alaska. I've had some NSF funding to do some community-based participatory research there earlier, and have been asked to propose a workshop in that area.
Thanks, Paul. How about Renu Joseph?
Hi, I'm Renu Joseph. I am part of the EI team, partly because I belong to the modeling sub-team, and I'm a modeling sub-team co-lead for IARPC. I am also involved in the staff group IARPC discussions, and I'm part of the steering group activities for plans for the next activity. But I'm here more as a modeling person today. Thanks.
Okay, how about John Pierce?
Hey everyone, John Pierce. I'm with U.S. Geological Survey, Alaska.
Thanks, John.
Go
ahead. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. And my video is, or my internet connection seems really slow today, so if I'm in and out, that might explain it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Jill Pruitt.
Hi, Jill Pruitt with the Alaska Ocean Observing System.
Thanks, Jill. Renee Tedesco.
Hi, good morning. I'm Renee Tedesco. I work with the National Weather Service, Alaska region here in Anchorage. I'm a member of many of the IARPC collaboration team. Molly, I don't know if you're aware that Meade Treadwell has established this Arctic policy group, and they just had their first group meeting this morning, but it was very interesting, a number of good attendance. So something to keep your eye on, certainly. Enjoying this rainy, cooler weather, and enjoying watching my strawberries become red.
Thanks, Renee. And yes, I am aware of that, and I signed up for it, but I was triple booked this morning, so wasn't able to attend, but we'll follow up on that. How about Robin Bronin?
Good morning. I work at the Alaska.
Kind of fading in and out, Robin.
practice where we are working with Alaska Native tribes on community-based environmental monitoring of erosion, permafrost thaw, and flooding. And I just harvested a big bowl of strawberries from
Great. All right, thanks. And I know I'm gonna
garden yesterday, which was awesome.
Great. Zhidong Zhang, did I pronounce that right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm from NOAA Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory, and my research in the Arctic involves using autonomous surface vehicles to measure air-sea interfaces, especially near sea ice. But I don't have a strawberry in my yard.
Okay, how about Meredith?
Hi, my name is Meredith LaValle, and I'm with the IARPC Secretariat. I help to manage some of the other collaboration teams, and I'm also helping with support the plan development. And Bird's got all of my strawberries, so I'm jealous.
Okay, thanks everybody. And you met Anne, so at the very beginning. So the agenda, you all have seen that, and this is a pretty standard agenda for all of the planning sessions for all of the collaboration teams. So this is the Environmental Intelligence Collaboration Team, and our mission is to develop integrated environmental knowledge that is timely, reliable, and suitable, that includes observing, modeling, and data integration. And we are a little bit of a unique team in that there are 3 teams that are actually kind of within the umbrella of environmental intelligence, and those are observing, modeling, and data. So it's a little bit of a unique structure compared to some of the other collaboration teams. We're first going to have Candace do a description of the planning process and what's happening with this current status of the plan. And then after that, Roberto is going to talk about the EI team and what we've been doing over the last year, and a little bit about our performance elements and which ones we're involved with. And then we wanted to open it up for discussion about the plan, the future of the EI collaboration team, what our role should be, if it should continue, how it's organized with the three sub-teams, and get some feedback there. So I'm going to turn it over to Candace, and I don't know how exactly you're doing this. Is Anne doing your slides for you?
Meredith is going to
okay,
project her screen. Yep.
Okay. All right.
Great. Thank you. So while Meredith gets the slides up, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for calling in today. A lot of this upfront material is going to be pretty repetitive for some of you, but Meredith has actually created a couple of new slides, so there will be a little bit of new information in here as well. So Meredith, are the slides up now?
They are, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, so basically I just want to spend a few minutes running through what IARPC is, what the Arctic Research Plan is, how we develop it, and how each of you can contribute to the plan. So next slide, please, Meredith. For those who don't know, but I think most of you do, that IARPC consists of principals from 14 federal agencies, departments, and offices across the government, and is charged with enhancing both the scientific monitoring of and research on local, regional, and global environmental issues in the Arctic. We are a small organization that has been part of the executive branch in the Office of the President since 2010, and we are a component of the National Science and Technology Council within the Office of Science and Technology Policy. And in 2011 is when IARPC became a subcommittee of the NSTC Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Sustainability. Next slide, please. IARPC has both federal only and open components. Parts of IARPC are federal only and are responsive to the needs of the federal agencies that make up IARPC. But other parts of IARPC, which we refer to as IARPC collaborations, are open to anyone who is interested in participating. And IARPIC collaboration hosts a wide variety of members and encourages discussion across these boundaries in order to improve IARPIC research. And you can see listed on the right-hand side of the slide all of the different teams that currently exist, and on the left-hand side of the slide, where the people come from who comprise these teams. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have a graphic describing the structure of the current research plan, which covers the years 2017 through 2021. We used 4 policy drivers to then create or help us figure out what the 9 research goals were going to be that we wanted to cover. And within each research goal, there are several performance elements that are meant to be conducted by those teams. Next slide, please. By law, under the Arctic Research Policy Act of 1984, IARPIC develops and implements an Arctic research plan every 5 years with the goal of improving the collective impact of federal agency investments in Arctic research. And currently, we have started the development of the next 5-year plan, which will cover the years 2022 through 2026. And the plan provides goals for collaboration teams to address that will advance our understanding, solutions, and policies within the Arctic. Next slide, please. Just a few things for folks to keep in mind about the plan and as you formulate comments on the plan. They align with goals and missions of the 14 agencies that comprise IARPIC. It is a federal document. And really the idea is to focus on research which will be enhanced through cooperation between the federal agencies. So we're looking for things that not just one agency would conduct on its own. And to date, the plans have mostly focused on basic research, but we could include applied research as well. And we welcome input on any of the natural or social sciences. Next slide, please. Here you have a brief schematic of our process to develop the next plan. We are currently in stage 2, the development stage. And after getting all of the necessary approvals from our principals and the like last fall and winter, we then started working on our engagement strategy, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. With the Federal Register notice that is out, conducting public input and listening sessions like the one we're having right now, and a workshop that I'll also talk more about, with the goal of producing a draft plan for public input and review next spring, and then hopefully finalizing and releasing the plan at the end of calendar 2021. Next slide, please. Here we mentioned just some of the different engagement processes that we have in place. As I noted, we have a Federal Register notice out for public comment until August the 2nd. We also have, within our Plan Development Steering Group, we have a team focused on engagement and communication. We've also, with the help of the IARPIC Secretariat, they have pulled together for us a synthesis of existing strategies and plans. And if anyone has plans that have not yet been shared with us for consideration, please do so. And we will also be holding a workshop in September. We've also been putting a lot of effort into certain groups who don't necessarily interact or engage with IARPIC on a regular basis. So within our engagement strategies, we've been doing a lot to focus on Northern residents and Indigenous communities, the state of Alaska, private sectors such as fishing industry, for example, and of course the academic community and those academic groups that aren't as represented in IARPIC, such as social science and engineering. Next slide, please. When we released the Federal Register notice in early April for public comment, we asked everyone to focus on 2 major issues when formulating their comments. One on the content of the plan itself, and the other on the organization of the plan. Next slide. There are many ways in which you can provide us your input during the scoping phase. You can submit directly through the Federal Register. We have an email address listed here. Also on the IARPIC collaborations page, we have an online form, and also ways to message us through the IARPIC Facebook page. Verbal comments, oral comments during these listening sessions and public webinars. And again, just a reminder to send us any strategic plans that you might have related to Arctic research. And again, all of this information is available on this specific page we've set up within the IARPIC collaborations platform. Next slide, please. We've been doing these listening sessions for a little while now and started to hear some comments. And so we just wanted to summarize a couple of themes that we've been hearing. One of the major themes is the need to conduct research that is relevant and responsive to northern communities and those who live in the Arctic. Also to consider activities and actions that support federal research in making decisions, and how to develop and sustain engagement with northern communities. We've also heard a bit about organization and structure of the plan in IARPIC, and we've heard some ideas about updating the current format, developing a framework for more cross-cutting convergence issues, and to build the plan around policy drivers with just 1 or 2 goals per driver. But this is definitely what we want to hear more about today. And on the last slide, we just have here the contact information for Nikush Carlo, who is our Plan Development Director. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. And also Meredith LaValle from the IARPIC Secretariat, if you guys have specific questions. And just because we do have quite a few folks from federal agencies on the phone right now, I just wanted to note that for comments from agencies that IARPIC has requested that you work directly with your IARPIC staff group point of contact, as opposed to IARPIC receiving multiple comments from the same agency. And with that, I will turn it back to Molly and see if we have any questions.
Thanks, Candace. That was great. Are there any questions about the slides that Candace just presented? You were just overwhelmingly clear.
I also think most of these people have heard me present this like 4 times now.
Oh, that could be true as well. Yeah. And I also wanted to note that Kelly Ulick also joined us, so she is online as well. So thanks. Okay, we're going to go to Roberto now, and he's going to talk a little bit about the EI collaboration team and what we've done in the past year and some of how we work with the performance elements in the plan.
Okay, thank you, Molly, and thank you, Candace, again for doing that overview on our plan development stages. So I just want to take a few minutes to sort of recap what the Environmental Intelligence Collaboration Team has been doing, working on over the last year, remind us as well as the performance elements that are in the current plan, and hopefully that will lead to a discussion on overall sort of future of the Environmental Intelligence Team in the context of the new plan. So as Molly sort of indicated early on in her brief description of the team, environmental intelligence really addresses one of 9 goals that are in the current plan. And while most of the other ones, or pretty much all the other goals have disciplinary specific collaboration teams like marine ecosystems, terrestrial ecosystem, atmospheric systems, et cetera, environmental intelligence was really sort of, I think, developed initially to help those other teams, kind of be a coordinating body, a supporting body to help advance tools and different approaches with a specific intent of what we called informed decision making, which was one of the emerging themes that Candace covered. So if folks aren't intimately familiar with the current plan, I'll remind you that there are, within the environmental intelligence goal, there are 5 research objectives comprising 19 different performance elements. But as we also noted early on, the real sort of heavy lifting of those performance elements are carried out or implemented by 3 different sub-teams. We have, again, the Arctic Observing Systems sub-team, a data sub-team, and a modeling sub-team, of which Renew is one of the co-leads. And so those 19 performance elements are distributed across the 3 sub-teams and sort of the core umbrella environmental intelligence team. The first 2 objectives are the ones that mostly are encompassed by environmental intelligence collaboration team directly. And the way sort of that we've approached that, that structure is by having, unlike the other collaboration teams, which tend to meet roughly on a monthly basis, the environmental collaboration team more often gets together on a quarterly basis. So we've had 3 to 4 meetings over the last 9, 12 months. And those meetings, if some of you have not attended, really tend to be cross-team discussions or bringing together multidisciplinary scientists and stakeholders to have these broader cross-cutting discussions. And so just as an example, since last spring, for example, we've had different discussions around Bering sea ice that brought in coastal resilience and sea ice collaboration teams. Last summer, we also had a multidisciplinary discussion on harmful algal blooms in the Arctic that brought in, again, sea ice team, coastal resilience, as well as health and well-being groups. And then earlier this year, we've also begun sort of thinking about larger scale and thinking about coordination of research activities. Specifically, in April, we held a pre-field season coordination in the Bering, just going over the different cruises, the research cruises and expeditions that were forward, or at least in some cases being canceled or delayed because of the current pandemic situation, but just giving a basic overall understanding of the types of activities that have been planned or were in the current thinking from different agencies and different state stakeholders. So that's kind of been the practice for the environmental intelligence team. Again, relying heavily, I think, on the sub-teams for more direct sort of progress on the different performance elements. And just as examples, you know, if you were to look at the current research plan and different performance elements that are attributed either to the environmental intelligence collaboration team or one of the teams, you'll see that there are different degrees of specificity. So, you know, I have the performance elements for environmental intelligence in front of me, and some of them are like support and coordinate research to advance understanding, or support and coordinate research to enhance understanding of connections between Arctic and global ocean circulation. So they are sort of relatively, I won't say open-ended, but somewhat ambiguous in some cases, whereas some of the ones that are more clearly attributed to the sub-teams are relatively specific. Again, focusing on data, observing and modeling systems. And so just as a point of you know, consideration here, we're trying to think about what might be the role of environmental intelligence team or something similar to environmental intelligence team in the next plan. Does it make sense to continue as a full team? Can we advance our goals in different other ways to really still maximize completion of these performance elements? Every year we do an annual report, of course, of progress on these elements, also available for viewing on the IARPIC Collaboration's website. And you see right now, pretty much all the performance elements have a little indicator that there's progress being made. But again, it varies based on whether or not we've had some meetings addressing some of these performance elements, or there have been some specific outcomes based on research and other activities that are meeting those objectives. And so I just want to sort of lay out there that there is, you know, we are, again, early stages of planning development, how the research plan will look, and then importantly, how do we implement that? Do we, again, as Candace indicated, do we retain the same structure? Do we modify, or do we come up with something relatively new? So I think that's all I want to sort of leave you with. Again, just these current elements, again, have differences in their specificity. There are different ways that we are making progress to achieve them. Accomplishments, again, have been really a coordinating facet of the overall arching environmental intelligence team with aids from the sub-teams. Yeah, I think that the real key question is, in what format or in what iteration do we maintain continuity of environmental intelligence performance elements and objectives in the next plan if we decide to have similar types of policy drivers and objectives. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Roberto. Are there any questions of Roberto? I should maybe also add is that the whole concept of environmental intelligence, the genesis of it, actually came from NOAA, from Kathy Sullivan when she was NOAA administrator. And this was one of the primary goals of NOAA at that time. With the current administration, that's changed, and environmental intelligence isn't as prominent in terms of NOAA's focus right now. So I think one of the, I think there's two questions. One is the structure, the current structure, and then secondly, kind of the mission of environmental intelligence, whether you call it environmental intelligence or something else, something more synthetic, holistic, not as disciplinary specific as some of the other teams. So I'm going to open it up to questions and comments and discussion. So I hope some of you have something to contribute here. Yeah. Renu.
We can, oh, sorry, can I just quickly say that on the agenda, if you don't have it in front of you, there are a few sort of prompting questions that include things like what would you want to change in the next 5-year plan? What do you see as a benefit of the environmental intelligence team? What is the benefit of having sub-teams?
Right.
And what are other research topics that you feel should be included in next 5-year plan, if that helps?
Thank you, thanks. So Renu, were you going to speak?
Not exactly at that point in time. I do have thoughts, but I'm just letting it sink in. So I'll go in a little later if that's okay.
Okay. All right, and I see that Robin Bronin had to drop off. She's having internet problems, and I think maybe John Pierce also dropped off. So we're down to just a few of us outside. There's Paul and Renee and Zhedong. Do one of you want to comment? No.
So if it's okay, if I can go ahead with some thoughts, and maybe this is more for discussion, right? So I've been thinking about how, partly because I'm part of the modeling team, how could we have done a little bit more of the cross-cutting activities that were, and be involved, how would we have been involved in those cross-cutting activities, and how could that have taken more of a cross-cutting form? And one of the things that I was thinking, I mean, these are a couple of thoughts. One thing is if we stop at the objective level, instead of going to the performance elements, they are broad enough for us to be able to define a new equivalent to a performance element, a small sub-goal, and then we as a team could have worked around it. I think we've tried this with respect to HABs, I think, before. I think maybe both of you joined in as leads. HABs was an activity that we tried working across groups, but then it seemed a little artificially brought in from the point of view of modeling, though it might have been at an earlier stage. I think modeling at this particular point in time has a little bit more of capability of tying into the HABs activity that was there. But there were activities like when we as a group sat and looked at things that were important to observations and important to modeling, topics like understanding the radiative fluxes at the surface of the ocean and so on. I know it is very scientifically oriented, but if we had touched on some of them, we could have shown a little bit more progress is what I was thinking. And this is the way I was thinking of how could it have evolved in terms of a cross-cutting activity that had a lot more success stories to be added to it. I mean, I really like the Bering Sea activity that was done recently, and it was nice to see the modeling aspects being rolled in there. So it's just a thought. I mean, if we have it a little bit more fluid instead of having definite performance elements in there and having the ability to define one or two of them at the beginning of each year, go after it, and then work on the next one as we go into the 5-year plan, that could have been a little bit more successful. I mean, it's just a thought.
Thanks, Renu. I know before I joined the collaboration team, I think the priority, and Emily Osborne was kind of one of the, I don't know if she was a team lead, I think she was the team lead for NOAA, but the priority was on the carbon cycle. And I think there was more of at least an initial effort to have the modeling, observing, and data teams kind of do activities that fed into an overall carbon cycle mission objective. But at that time, she had kind of expressed some frustration that it really hadn't developed that way as well as she had anticipated. And so when I joined it and we were looking for, it seemed like the EI team has been one that, I wouldn't call it the catch-all, the one where it doesn't belong to anybody else, so it goes into EI, but it is more of a synthesis, an emerging issue, kind of issues that cross-cut lots of different disciplines, and not necessarily also issues that you can predict out 5 years and know exactly what you want to do over that 5-year period. So I guess there's somewhat of and then also during that time, I think the 3 sub-teams initiated their own activities and their own collaborations and their own kind of goals and objectives that weren't necessarily fed into an overall umbrella objective. So I guess going into the future, is there an advantage? Is there benefit in having kind of this synthetic type team, collaboration team with a kind of more synthesis type objectives, and how specific should those be? How much should they be based on some emerging things? And then how should the 3 sub-teams, should they even be part of the EI team, or should they be separate teams now? And I'd appreciate any thoughts on that.
Molly, this is Renee.
Yeah, go ahead, Renee.
I'll address some of your comments if I can remember what you said.
Sorry.
I swear my brain seems to drizzle out of my ears on a very regular basis. But I did want to comment on Renu's thoughts. In fact, yesterday, Renu, Don Moore and I had a discussion about why the ASIC, this new structure within the National Weather Service Alaska region, the Alaska Environmental Science and Services Integration Center, my understanding when it was created was that it was going to work not only within other NOAA line offices, but other federal agencies to integrate some of the science and services to address key issues. And one of them was HAB, the harmful algal bloom. And Don basically said he's had a very, very difficult time trying to get folks within NOAA to come together to further discuss the needs for an integrated science and service capability. So Molly, to your point, sort of bringing what Renu was talking about, I don't agree that we should have a separate Arctic, observation collaboration team. I don't think we should have a separate modeling collaboration team or a separate data collaboration team. You're basically stovepiping the effort. I think there should be one team, and if you want to call it the environmental intelligence team or something else, I think we need to bring resources. This is people, this is money, this is expertise together in one area and not have them stovepiped into other areas. So, you know, if we want to look at maybe focusing on one or two salient issues that are of relevance to the Native Indigenous communities, and I know HABs, the harmful algal blooms, is certainly, you know, of concern. This paralytic shellfish poisoning, PSP, is also of concern because it affects food security. That could be a hook that the environmental intelligence team hangs its hat on. And I'm not too sure why I can't speak. Maybe I need more coffee. But anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Renee. Any thoughts, Candace or Roberto, from what Renee spoke to? Or Renu?
So, yeah, if that's okay, partly because I mean, I like the idea of there being cross-cutting synthetic topics that emerge, and we need a way to capture that. And maybe it doesn't have to be called environmental intelligence. It can be called, you know, a synthesis group or whatever. But having that is important. Now, the only part where I would take a little bit of issue with respect to Renee's point is the fact that modeling data and observations are stovepiped, and they don't necessarily, I mean, and that they should be forced to contribute to just integrative activities. That's where I think there's a little bit of the place where I think I would differ. And that would be because I think, I mean, as part of the modeling team, we have had cross-cutting, meaning we have met with other collaboration teams on a regular basis. And in doing that, what we have done is that we've been able to develop activities. Right now, there is even a new workshop in the planning stages that will bring more efficiencies and it brings more integration across the agencies with respect to modeling. And we don't want to lose that aspect of success that we have. Right now, there are about, I don't know, there were between 20 and 50 people at the modeling collaboration team discussion, and all of them come with different points of view. And modeling itself, if you look at the way agencies have invested in modeling, every agency has a modeling component to it. So modeling is just not integrated into the individual components. I mean, then you can say the same thing about the atmospheric collaboration team or anything. There are individual strengths to modeling that would mean that modeling be its own collaboration team, but it can also contribute to the environmental intelligence or its equivalent of a cross-cutting group. I can talk about the different modeling centers, but the same thing I'm sure is there with respect to observations and data. And we should not lose the strength that we've developed in the course of time with respect to creating communities that interact. That's one thing. So I don't want to just see modeling data and observations being forced to think about cross-cutting topics only, and the other agencies, other collaboration teams being taken off the hook. I think the cross-cutting topics should be from all collaboration teams. Did I make sense? I don't know. I talked about a couple of different things.
Yeah, no, I think you did. And I know certainly at the IARPIC team lead meeting next week, we'll be talking about some of these issues as well. So it seems like for modeling data and observations, there are, I guess then there are issue specific collaborations, I think, within each of those. I mean, certainly with data, it's how do you integrate data across federal agencies, just processes and standards, interoperability, kind of things like that. Within modeling, I mean, you could look at it, how do you better integrate across agencies models to support HABs or ocean acidification or sea ice prediction or whatever. So what is the difference between looking at things from a more issue specific versus a more integrative? How do you look at like more the whole earth model system, or you know, something that is brings in like 4 or 5 different models and trying to integrate them into more of a predictive? So what's that balance there for the team versus the EI collaboration team, or into the future, I guess? Does that make sense? And you may be on mute there, Renu. So, no, you're okay. Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I didn't want to, you know, take up all the time, but there are things, for instance, if you just think about what's happening in the Arctic as a whole, you know, how would the Arctic be, like, say, 20 years from now? A question like that, I mean, if you just, I'm not saying that's the question, but if you think about a question like that, you see modeling contributing to it, you see permafrost teams, land teams, I'm sure observations and observations and data could play a part in it too. You know, and then CI, it brings in all the different groups, different teams together. And one way we could task or develop this cross-cutting team, it's just my thought, would be to have every group, every collaboration team, including modeling, observations and data, come up with cross-cutting topics that span 2 or 3 groups. So that would bring in things that are tangible, things that the team leads can think that we can work towards the success of that particular goal, and it would still be cross-cutting. Now, in terms of HABs, it would be great to have the modeling capabilities come up and contribute to it, but right now, at least from the modeling team where we are, is that we look at larger scale models, and that does not have the HAB as part of it. I see that coming in like 4 years from now. I would see that as something that we can really contribute to because the models are getting to finer resolution, more things are being included in. So I think the environmental intelligence questions that were brought together right now were a little bit more forward-looking than where we are right now in terms of developing the capabilities for it. If we talk about CI's prediction, it's more tangible, and we can show success to it. There are different things happening across agencies that we can show that it's an cross-agency activity. So, you know, keeping that balance in mind, it's nice to have forward-looking things, but thinking about things that are tangible so that we can claim immediate success is the way I would phrase environment, you know, these cross-cutting, synergistic questions. And I'm sure all of you have more experience than I do when it comes to those kind of questions?
Well, I would say that in my discussions with Alaskans and people who live in the region, they want to know it's rapid change in the Arctic, and they want to know what is happening now and what is going to happen next year. They don't want to know 20 years down the road. They want to know what's going to happen next year. And so, you know, they need that they want that near term because things are changing so rapidly, and trying to push that envelope of forecasting is, the Weather Service is used to forecasting, and they're used to having their forecasts often wrong. But you look at biological biologists and those who manage, you know, whether it's marine mammals or fish or whatever, the commercial fishery managers, I think, are used to forecasting because they have to set quotas for the next year. But you try to push seabird biologists or marine mammal biologists to do a little forecasting, or and it gets really, they're very reluctant to do so. But it is that really things are changing so rapidly. What is actually happening now? What do we think is going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years? So that is within that time frame that you describe. And we may not be there at the point where we can do that, but how do we set up the structure and start thinking about what is needed to actually be able to do that in the future?
Yeah, and this is Renee, and I would just like to point out, this is very, very good, Molly. I totally agree with you. I think too, one of the things we really need to get a better handle on is downscaling of these models. These large scale global models don't do justice for the communities that live along, you know, the western and northern coast of Alaska. So somehow we have to get a better handle on downscaling our models in order for them to be useful and beneficial for the users. Thank you.
So any other thoughts from other participants on the line here, either Paul or Zhidong or Candace? Oh, and we have Bill Manley now has joined us as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just like to follow a little bit, follow up the discussion we just had in terms of prediction. So there's several aspects of that. Number one is I do not know how much the operational centers have been involved with this planning. And right now, Molly, you just mentioned this short-term up to 1 year prediction, and most of them are done by the prediction centers, and some of them are done at the research level. So I would say maybe involving prediction centers could give us, provide some perspective on how their plan, what's their goal in 5 years, and how our research can help them develop their prediction capability. And what I know is they value observations in the Arctic very much because they're not much. And they would want any kind of observations to be available to them in real time. And even though they are not capable at this time to assimilate all observations into their prediction system, they want that data because they can use data to validate their prediction. And once they know those data are there, they motivate them to develop their data simulation system to include this data. But if they know there's no such data available at all, they probably will go somewhere else, some other direction. So it's very important to let them know at the research stage what we are pushing the envelope to get observations available, and in the future maybe in real time. So that helps them to plan their strategy also. On the other hand, when we talk about the prediction in terms of marine ecosystem, marine biology, there's no operational product. But in research labs, people are already doing that. Based on my limited knowledge, GFDL is developing marine ecosystem modeling. They are not in the prediction mode, but they are trying to get a model ready. And I would not be surprised that kind of a modeling capability will transition into operation in the future. And here at PML, we are working with fishery very closely. And we did exactly what Renee just said, downscaling using the global model prediction and downscaling to regional model. And that regional model produced very detailed physical, chemical information that fit into a biological model. And actually, the product of that chain of action is to have some prediction for marine habitat. And that the product actually is used by the fishery industry. Even though, this is semi-operational, semi-research, but it's going on. So I would imagine probably there are other activities similar in a very local area and involved with a research institute or identity and engaging with the users. It's maybe not on the radar screen. And if we collect all those information together, then probably we can map out what would be the prediction capability in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, thanks. And maybe Candace, maybe you could speak to this within NOAA, because NOAA is the agency that has the most operational aspects and has operational and research components to it. And how do those two pieces of kind of the NOAA mission, how are they feeding into the development and prioritization of the IARPIC plan?
Yeah, so we've had within the NOAA Research Council for several years now a lot of discussion about research to operations and moving things from the research and development phase into a fully operational phase. And also within our Research Council, we've recently released several science and technology strategies on several topics such as cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and the like. And I think, with this focus that we have from our leadership right now on moving into new ways of conducting research and getting the information that we need, and has only been heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic and not able to send our ships with our people out as we normally do. I think it's definitely something that is important to NOAA as we move into the future. I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm. Somewhat.
Okay, yeah, sorry. And I know that we have also some folks from OAR on. I don't know if they want to speak to this at all, like Kelly or anyone.
Yeah, Kelly, do you want to comment on that? You may be on mute.
Yeah, trying to find my mute button here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Shidong, we should talk and try to figure out a way to kind of pull things together on the OAR side in that regard, and then we can maybe talk about how to pull in the operational centers, because I know that that's been a challenge just overall, even with inner NOAA workings as well. So trying to pull them into an interagency space, I feel like is going to be a struggle, but we can definitely try.
Kelly, Shirong, this is Renee. I would certainly like to be included in that conversation. I think this is something our Arctic Testbed and Proving Ground could get their hands wrapped around, because that is their mission, is to go from research to operations. And certainly our Alaska Environmental Science and Services Integration Center, the ASIC, they can help implement the product so that it is disseminated to the users and stakeholders across Alaska. So I'd like to be part of that conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Renee.
So I'm I just wanted to add, that as part of modeling, just because when we were working on the previous, on the current plan, I heard about the Arctic testbed being very important to NOAA's activities. And if you notice somewhere in the performance elements, I do have Arctic testbed performance elements. And we did engage with the with some of the scientists with respect who were using a version of a regional Arctic system model as part of it. When I said that it would take some time to get things together, I think I'm talking from the research point of view in terms of, the capabilities are just being developed. It needs a lot more focused work to be able to get to that fine detail where we are able to connect. For instance, DOE has a new effort, and we've been trying our best to make connections to the end user, but staying within the DOE framework. And so as part of one of those activities, we have a coastal project that has been initiated, and partly because of me hearing so much about HABs, I tried bringing that in, so we couldn't go all the way to HABs, but we looked at what the biogeochemistry from the land through river routing to the ocean was, and we're trying to bring that in as part of the model. So there are activities that are there, but we're not at that stage where even the models in GFEL that Shidong talked about, it would take a couple of years before we get to that stage of being able to do a prediction. And some of the scientists whom we work with often remind us that just because you can downscale and get values at a higher resolution, it doesn't mean that the value is right. So that is something to be taken with caution. So the science is moving in that direction. I know we could have it right now. It would be great if we had it now, but I don't think we are there. But having these discussions and thoughts and a group that talks about these things, it will help in channeling ideas towards that topic.
Totally agree, Rena. Totally agree.
Well, thanks, everybody. I think we are getting to the end of our hour. And so are there any final comments? I really appreciate the discussion. Anything from final comments from Bill or Shidong or Paul? Hearing none. Again, I want to thank, this has been recorded, and so the recording and the notes will go on the IARPC website, and I appreciate everybody's contribution. And I know a number of you will be involved in the team lead meetings next week, so look forward to talking to you then. So anything else, Anne, that we need to do before wrapping up here?
I don't think so, no. I dropped the link to the IARPC website in the chat for anyone who's interested to look at the research cruise update and the COVID updates that we have on the website. So if anyone's interested, the new one should go out next week.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Molly, see you later.
Bye.